Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner, is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner, is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Ripon Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Ripon Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
Hello.
Lasers.
Hello.
This is My Life DIY, and
Hi, this is JoJo.
Hi, my name is Ash.
Hey everybody, it's AJ the Ripon Rabbit.
This is Cynthia Sue Larson,
This is your man Meta, aka Propagate This Light,
and you're now listening
to Dark Wolf's Den.
to Dark Wolf's Den Show on Ripon Common Sense Radio.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Are ghosts real?
We had 1,000 hours of continuous communication with the spirit world.
Does time travel actually exist?
The laws of physics seem to be compatible with time machines.
You know, sometimes I wonder about reincarnation. Don't you?
A 4-year-old boy in Adelaide, Australia, has told his parents that he used to be Britain's Princess Diana.
What would happen if the world found out that aliens were real?
I didn't say disclosure would be easy, but what is the alternative?
To establish a space force as the 6th branch of the armed forces.
We have so many questions and yet so little time, so to have you here, the pleasure is all mine.
Coming to you from a secret mountain cave, hidden deep within the Idaho wilderness. This is the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and we are broadcasting live worldwide from a secret mountain cave hidden high up in the beautifully snow-covered peaks of the Idaho mountains. That's right, we're ripping through the electromagnetic soup, tearing through the atmosphere, and tunneling away into your radio like a quantum particle. This is the Dark Wolf's Den Show for Thursday, March 18th, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about a really interesting topic. I'm really good at finding and coming up with these topics that aren't exactly the most mainstream topics, right? Tonight is no different. We're going to be discussing an interesting link between the music industry and ufology. We all know about Tom DeLonge and the TTSA, but there's actually a pattern that goes back way, way further than you may realize, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to get into all that and more here in just a moment. But first, today in history. You know, around here, AJ and I are both considered entertainers. So to us, this is kind of an interesting today in history. Check this out, ladies and gentlemen. On this day in 1881, the Barnum and Bailey Circus, traveling as, quote, the greatest show on earth, end quote, debuts at Madison Square Garden in New York City. This show would last for 146 years before closing their doors finally in 2017, ladies and gentlemen, and that is today's Today in History. Wow, you gotta admit, that's pretty amazing. 146 years of Barnum and Bailey Circus. That's a lot of entertainers to come and go, right? And speaking of entertainers, the entertainment industry seems to actually have this hidden little secret that a lot of people don't know about, especially when it comes to the music industry. And that is this odd little connection with the paranormal, and specifically UFOs. It seems there are a lot of musical artists back through the years who've had a really interesting connection, whether they be just interested in ufology or actually be abductees themselves. And tonight we're going to hear from an amazing researcher that I respect a whole lot, who's been working a lot on Stanton Friedman's work and getting that together after his passing away, which Stanton Friedman had a lot of ufology information. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker tonight, Mr. Grant Cameron.
This is Mel Fankhauser. This guy wrote the song called Wipeout in the 1960s. And it is the only song that I ever bought. I bought 2 records. I bought a 45 of this song, and I bought a Herb Alpert long play recording. Those are the only 2 records. Otherwise, I still don't listen to music. I absolutely don't have anything to do with it. I just got dragged into this, and I'll explain how it happened. He had a UFO sighting. And one of the interesting things is the musicians that were affected were people who started certain types of music.
And as we go on through the case files this evening, you're going to find this to be very true. The main ones that are affected have a very close connection, if not are the very beginning of that particular genre of music.
This guy was in a surf rock guy, and he's the guy that started surf rock. And what you're going to see, I'm going to describe, these aren't people who are just like surf rockers. These are the guys that started it. It's almost like they were the ones that were influenced.
For those that may not know what surf rock is, think of the Beach Boys.
And I'll talk about his experience with John Lennon later. But to give you an idea, a lot of musicians, there was a book written by Michael Luckman called Alien Rock. He goes through the whole thing, and basically it's 315 pages, 320 pages of, isn't it interesting how all major rock musicians are interested in UFOs? I got into it from the other end. I was told that the aliens were influencing rock music. So that's how I got, and I was interested in the alien influence. Why are the aliens doing this?
So that is quite a bold claim. Yet a claim we are making tonight on this show, that aliens are influencing rock music. Yes, I know how crazy a conspiracy theory wild this sounds, but let's hear the evidence out before we make any judgments, right?
When I sort of got dragged into this, I came across various musicians that have had UFO experiences. Alice Cooper is one. He saw the Phoenix Lights, and he actually put up some money. This is not this is a sort of a secret story, but he actually put up some money for ufology. He's very much into it, but very private. And
I happen to know that there are a few people in the music realm, not to count other high-paying realms, but in the music realm that do kind of fund some paranormal researchers and paranormal radio, things like that. None here at the Ripon Rabbit Hole, that I can assure you, but there are those that have reached out to those that work in this field specifically to help fund their research.
Olivia Newton-John. A lot of people, if you see the eating thing, a lot of people are vegetarians. A lot of people in this room are into saving the ecology, all this sort of stuff. Olivia Newton-John is big time into animal rights. She's into ecology, all this sort of stuff. She had a very dramatic UFO experience, close-up UFO experience at 15 years old. This is what you're going to find, is that a lot of the people that are leading the social and political movements in terms of ecology and all this kind of stuff are people who are experiencers.
And this goes back to the alien abduction message that has been repeated by most every alien abduction experiencer ever. The message of taking care of the planet and cleaning it up and stop using nuclear weapons, things like that. There's this consistent message that comes through from the, quote, visitors, end quote, of this planet that have abducted people and caused many abduction cases for many years. The details that come out of the message that come back from these people are, like I said, the same across the board. And we're going to find that same message tonight through a lot of the different musicians.
So she had a UFO sighting. This is Achy Breaky Heart Billy Ray Cyrus. This is this photograph of 5 UFOs that he posted. He outed himself that he had seen this. This is the one who has the record. Now his name is going to escape me. Patrick Moraz. He's the guy who took over, and I'm going to talk about the Moody Blues.
The Moody Blues, which we'll get to here in a little while, is an incredibly intriguing case file.
He's the guy that when Mike Pinder left the Moody Blues, it was Patrick Moraz took over. And the Moody Blues, as you probably know, were abducted, and I'm going to go through the whole thing about their story and before they were born and stuff like that. And when he took over, he's crazier than they are. I mean, this guy describes a story. I've got it on audio. I'm not going to play it because I'm always short on time, and I talk very fast. I talk faster and faster as the lecture goes on. But Pat, as I realize I'm in time trouble, Patrick Moraz tells a story of 1977, or I think it's 1977, 1973. He's in Brazil, and he sees a fleet of UFOs, and he said thousands of them going over his head like a red freeway. He said all these UFOs. So you get this thing, like what's the chances that the head guy for the Moody Blues is big time into UFOs, he quits, and the next guy that takes over is even worse than him.
The Moody Blues seemed to be a very distinct group that had a lot of contact amongst all of its members.
This is one that was just made public. This is Uji, I think he's a rapper out of San Francisco who's just come public to say he's been abducted. And it's amazing how many have been abducted. It's just unbelievable. This is one from Yvonne Smith's latest book, where she talks about an experiencer, Dawn. Grew up in a well-to-do family, the daughter of a frontman for a very popular early 1970s rock band. And that seems to be the thing, that you start looking at these very big rockers and suddenly you find out they're experiencers and they've got these sort of things. And I've got a list of over 24, and there's some of the major musicians, and I'm going to describe some of them today, but this is actually a separate lecture. I'm just doing part of it today.
Just a list of 24 is a pretty good list, and that's just the ones that we've known about thus far up on this research, right? But here is how Grant Cameron actually got pulled into this research.
This is where it came from me. This is Chris Bledsoe, who's an experiencer in North Carolina, had a very dramatic thing. Hollywood got interested. Mel Gibson heard the story. Mel Gibson wanted to do the movie on his thing. Mel Gibson actually at one point wanted to play the lead role in this thing. The two scriptwriters came to Chris Bledsoe and said, we want to do this movie. Mel Gibson wants to do this movie, and it's the story of the message that the experiences are carrying. It's not a shoot-'em-out alien movie. It's a story about the message. And they said this movie will be bigger than The Passion of the Christ. The Passion of the Christ did $620 million. They were assuring him this movie will be bigger. Now, whether the movie's still on track or not, there was an option signed for the movie.
And I don't believe that this movie has ever been made unless it means it was signs. And God, I hope that wasn't it, because that's not the alien message, generally speaking, in my opinion. But, yeah, I haven't seen this version of a movie come out as far as like being the alien message and not an alien shoot 'em up or drama suspense something or other. If I'm wrong, please let me know either over here in the chat, or if you're watching this on replay, let me know what movie it is, and I will gladly go watch it, because I would love to know what movie this is.
He came to me and he said, he said to me, this is one of the aliens, a 7-foot bluish-green alien that he's in contact with. And it happened to appear in a crop circle 5 years before he actually went public, before he had his awakening experience in Great Britain. This is the other alien that he encountered, he and his son, and there was 3 other witnesses. It's just the most wild story you'll ever hear. It has these red goggles with these sort of blinds going up and down on these things. So this is his experience. He contacts me, he says, I just want to let you know the aliens have told me they're influencing rock music.
Now, as a ufology researcher, I've got an open mind. Don't get me wrong. But if somebody in the music industry come to me and said, hey man, I'm an experiencer, and just so you know, the aliens are actually influencing rock music, my honest answer would be to scoff, put it in file 13, and go on with my life until I found some evidence that actually matched that statement. But I would not give it very much credence. How about you? What would your reaction be if somebody come to you and from inside the industry and told you that they were aliens were influencing the industry? I mean, even as a paranormal researcher and as a conspiracy theorist, there comes a time when we all have to draw a line and say, all right, I just don't believe this, or I do believe this, right? There comes a time in our life, our personal life or our public life, where we have to say, all right, I'm in or out on this, right? And this is one of those that if one of those people come to me from the inside of the music industry, I'd have to be out on this one. What about you, Grant? What did you do?
And I went, whatever. I mean, I'm not interested in music. It's like, whatever. I mean, didn't pay any attention to it. But
yeah, like I said, I think that would have been all of our pretty common reaction.
The thing is, he told me that Kashmir was one of the songs that he said that this was influenced. And I still have not listened to the whole song. I've listened to parts of the song. But when I found out it was in the trailer to the alien movie John Carpenter, and you have the aliens chanting this song, I went, wow, maybe I should pay attention to this.
Now that is an interesting little synchronicity, isn't it?
The other musician that he said, and this is what really got me dragged in, was Neil Young. And Neil Young grew up in the city where I live. So I was kind of interested. That's kind of weird. He grew up, we know who Neil Young is. Big environmentalist, trying to shut the oil sands down in Canada. He writes this song called After the Gold Rush. 1968, before the ecology movement really got going. 1968, he writes this song, and if you listen to it, it's basically the message of many of the experiencers and the contactees. And basically what it says is we are treating the world like a gold rush. And when the gold is gone, It's going to become a ghost town. And the silver seeds, the flying saucers, are going to come, and they're going to take the chosen ones to another planet.
And again, we find this same alien message popping up.
This is what he wrote in 1968. Here's the last part of this song. Now, a lot of people have sung this song. Dolly Parton is one. What I found is there's another connection to the people who have sung this song. And Dolly Parton actually sang a song about UFO abduction.
Yeah, you heard that right. Dolly Parton actually sang a song about UFO abduction.
So Dolly Parton went to Neil Young and she said, what does the song mean? What is it all about? And Neil Young said, I was in an altered state. In fact, he said, I was stoned when I wrote it. I have no idea what it meant. I have no idea.
Now that is an honest answer. I was stoned when I wrote it.
But everybody went to do it. So Dolly Parton does a song, and Thom Yorke does a song as well. And he actually at one point plays it on Neil Young's piano in San Jose. The point is, he's an experiencer. So you have this song that has the experiencer message, and suddenly what appears to be experiencers start to sing this song. And he sings the subterranean homesick alien.
Now, this also is a very interesting story.
And his idea for the song, they asked him where the idea for the song came. He said, the first essay I ever wrote in school was, you are an alien from another planet, you have landed and you are standing in the middle of Oxford, and write an essay about what you see, and if you're an alien form on another planet, how do you see these people?
Which in and of itself is an interesting writing prompt and thought experience. Not one that we're going to get into now because we're really crunched on time, but it's a really interesting thought, right?
And then he said, and you hear this with experiences all the time, he says he's driving down a country road one day and suddenly hit a bird, which he believed was a pheasant. He stopped the car and at that moment started thinking about alien abduction. And you'll hear this thing with people hitting birds, deer, and suddenly they get out of the car and they have this idea about alien abduction.
That also reminds me of the strange connection of the screen memory of owls and the gray alien abductions.
He's written a number of songs. I won't go through these songs, but basically, if you look at it, you can see. I mean, the guy's an experiencer. He's writing all these stories about being on the beautiful ship and show me the world. I'd like to see, tell my friends they'd never believe me. They think I finally lost it completely. I'd show them the stars and the meaning of life, and they'd shut me away, but I'd be all right, all right.
I gotta say, those are some very interesting lyrics to a song, and it definitely does reference an alien ship, it sounds like, right?
Another one, I jumped in the river, and what did I see? Black-eyed angels swam with me, a moon full of stars and astral cars, and all the things I used to see.
Black-eyed angels and astral cars. Yeah, that definitely sounds like an encounter, doesn't it?
Another one that sang the song was Patti Smith. And again, she's one of the ones, she's known as the godmother of punk rock in New York City. She was one of the first people ever to go on Saturday Night Live.
So again, we have yet another person who is extremely influential within their own genre.
She's famous for Gloria. This is the third show of Saturday Night Live. She sings the song after the gold rush. And she changes his lyrics from the 1970s, Nature on the Run in the 1970s, to the 21st century. She writes a bunch of songs in the 1975. This is when I have my experiences, when Travis Walton has his experience, and this is when she has this sort of experience. She writes this, Distant Fingers, when will you be landing? When will you return? Feel my heart expanding, you and your alien arms. All my earthly dreams are shattered. I'm so tired I quit. Take me forever. It doesn't matter. Deep inside your ship.
Yeah, I don't even think it's a question as to whether or not that's describing an alien encounter.
You got to remember, in 1975, abduction was not a big deal. There was Betty and Barney Hill, there was the Pascagoula case, there was a Schirmer case in 1967, and there was Travis Walton in 1975. That was it. This was not a big subject, and she's writing about this in 1975.
And if you are interested in the Travis Walton case, we went over that just a couple weeks ago.
She also writes, Ain't It Strange? I spin, I spiral, I splatter. Hand of God, I feel the finger. Hand of God, I start to whirl, and I whirl, and I whirl. Don't get dizzy, don't fall down now. Turn, God, turn. Go on like a dervish. Turn, God. Make a move, turn, God. I must move into another dimension, come into another dimension, come into another dimension, come into another dimension. Strange, strange. You gotta remember, she's writing this in 1976.
And there you've got the interdimensional idea, right? There's a lot of idea in ufology, like Mr. Jacques Vallée suggested many years ago, that the aliens may very well be interdimensional and not from outer space, which is something that's still highly in debate amongst ufology circles even to this day.
She also makes fact that she doesn't believe she's from here. You heard this last night. A number of people have been talking about this thing where they don't believe they're from here.
And I think if you look around the world right now, most of us, or at least most of us listening to this show, would agree. We don't feel like we belong here exactly right now, right?
And she's one of a number of musicians who have made this claim that they don't believe they're from the earth.
I will say I don't quite believe I'm from this version of Earth, but that's a whole nother story. My Mandela Effect people will definitely understand what I mean by that.
She said the song is really talking about myself. From very early in childhood, 4 or 5, I felt alien to the human race. I felt very comfortable with thinking that I was from another planet because I felt disconnected. I was very tall and skinny, and I didn't look like anyone else. I didn't even look like any other member of my family.
That really makes me wonder if she very well may be a hybrid of an alien human that was allowed to stay here on Earth.
John Denver is another one that believes he's not from here. He talked about it publicly, but he said, I thought about it. But the guy who wrote a song, wrote a song called Spirit, which talks about his alien experience. And the guy that wrote the song describes this. As an 8-year-old in Oklahoma, he would play with animals, sleep outside, and gaze into the stars. He would pinpoint the place in the heavens where he thinks he came from. It's near the Ring Nebula in Lyra, says a friend, Joe Henry, who wrote the lyrics of John Denver's song Spirit, which he celebrates his professed celestial ancestry.
And it really makes you wonder what he means by that, right? Whether he's from there or whether he means his soul is from there. That's really interesting.
Another guy that believed he was from someplace else, and this is another one that started, he was one of the first jazz guys. He wasn't just a jazz guy, he was one of the first jazz guys.
And again, you've got another person who is a beginner in his genre and very, very influential within that genre.
Sun Ra. And he said Sun Ra was a prolific jazz. He was composing music at 11 years old. He said in 1936 he was surrounded by a blue light. My whole body changed into something else. I could see through myself. And he goes through this whole experience about encountering the aliens. And he believed that he was from another planet.
So again, we've got somebody who was very influential in pioneering their genre of music, who was also an alien experiencer. How many of you have ever heard of Scratch Lee Perry?
This guy is the guy that invented dub music, which is basically the beginning of reggae. This is the guy that invented reggae. He was the producer for Bob Marley. He's the guy that turned Bob Marley around to do music a different way and made Bob Marley famous. He was one of the pioneers.
And yet another pioneer in their musical genre.
I am an alien from another world. This is what he said. I'm an alien from another world, from outer space. I don't have no land, no estate, no property, no house. Not on this earth. I live in space. I'm only a visitor here. Some people think they are here to collect property. I'm here with my suitcase to collect only the good brains.
I do hope that was a metaphor for knowledge. Otherwise, that's kind of scary.
George Clinton, I can't remember what he was an inventor of some type of music, but he again was, he said, I'm pretty sure I'm an alien because I believe that there are a lot of them here. Myself and pretty much all the people around us, we share some kind of strange living being. A lot of people are going to find out. And he goes on and he talks about how he believes that he has an extraterrestrial ancestry.
That's interesting wording because John Denver specifically wrote a song about his extraterrestrial ancestry.
Jerry Garcia was another one that talked about the fact that he had this disconnection with the earth. And of course, he was from the Grateful Dead. And he had this he had a lot of ayahuasca experiences. Him and Sting from Police had this ayahuasca experience, and then they started the Rainforest Foundation, and they did all this stuff to save the rainforest. And he talks about this experience, stuck for 2 days on a ship, and with these beings, and he describes these beings that he encountered, and very dramatically influenced his life. He also, you'll see, he painted a UFO, and I think it's $185,000 if you want to buy it. So
good. You want to buy the painting that Jerry Garcia did of his UFO experience? Another extremely influential musician, and that's in the rock music genre, of course.
This is another weird connection with musicians, is they end up in movies. This is, if you look on the, right there, the guy with the headphones, that's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and that's Jerry Garcia. He's in the movie.
And we do know that we do see a lot of musicians cross over into the movies. And it's interesting, the Garcias in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, right? It's funny, the little nuggets and Easter eggs they fit in there, but we've got to go ahead and fit a couple nuggets of information in here, and we will be right back for the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den show after these messages. Don't you touch that dial. That's right.
We gotta stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Ow! Are you enjoying the program so far? I know I am. If you're enjoying the Dark Wolf's Den radio show, look at musicians and UFOs, and you haven't done so already, please make sure to thumb up that video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell. Jerry Hicks will return again next Wednesday night to Howl in another weekend together with you. As we're here bringing you the very best of Common Sense Radio every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights. The very best of Common Sense Radio, the Ripon Rabbit Hole. I'll return again tomorrow night, Friday, March 19th, 2021, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Come along with me as we journey through the rabbit hole of doppelgangers. Is there somebody out there that is exactly like you? Have you met them? Or would you look forward to meeting them? Or would you run away from them and say, I don't want to have anything to do with you? Doppelgangers will be our topic tomorrow night. Come along as we explore the rabbit hole together. Then Saturday night, March 20th, our 4th annual Freedom Flame broadcast. That's right. Get your candles ready to light and put in your windows. Saturday, March 20th, as we do our 4th annual Freedom Flame celebration. Now, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. It makes no difference your political affiliation. We will come together Saturday night and celebrate united in our freedom. And if you can agree with that, then we invite you to be here to celebrate in the 4th annual Freedom Flame broadcast, the basis and foundation of our website there, riponrabbithole.com. I'm really excited. Last year, it was an international success, and I have a feeling this year will be the same. I cannot wait. Then we'll end out the weekend right together Sunday night, March 21st, as we explore magnetic personalities. Are you the kind of person that just draws people to you? Or perhaps are you a person that's drawn to a particular individual? Is it because of their magnetic personality? Join me Sunday night, March 21st, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, and find out. And we'll end out the weekend right together. Oh my goodness, these weekends go so fast. You can visit us at riponrabbithole.com. That's the riponrabbithole.com. Sign up for your exclusive Backstage Pass. We'll send you out our weekend schedule every Wednesday morning as we celebrate the most extended weekends in radio. You're listening to the Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, the Ripon Rabbit Hole. Now back to Jerry Hicks and the Dark Wolf's Den for Thursday, March 18th, with musicians and UFOs.
This is My Life DIY, and
hi, this is JoJo.
Hi, my name is Oz.
Hey everybody, it's AJ the Ripon Rabbit.
This is Cynthia Sue Larson.
This is your man Meta, aka Propagate This Light.
And you're now listening
to Dark Wolf's Den.
The Dark Wolf's Den Show on Ripon Common Sense Radio.
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and welcome back to the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den Show for Thursday, March 18th, 2021. Whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, we have been discussing musicians and the interesting link they have to UFOs and UFO experiences. And there's actually been a very large number of people that pioneered their genre that have been involved with UFO experiences, a larger number than I would have thought. And these are actually really, really well-known names like Jerry Garcia, Dolly Parton, and John Denver, to name a few. And when we went to the break, we were discussing artists that were describing the idea that they believe that they're not from this world. And the next one, I gotta say, really doesn't surprise me all that much. And ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, our speaker this evening, Mr. Grant Cameron.
Another one, Michael Jackson, clearly believed he was from someplace else.
For those listening around the world on radio, and for those listening on YouTube also, I have to ask, do any of you even a little bit feel surprised by the idea that Michael Jackson feels like he's not from this world, right?
He said of all the Grammys he ever won, the one that he was most proud of was the one he did, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. He did the recording for children for E.T. the Extraterrestrial. He read it. It was the best one he had ever won, according to him. According to Michael Jackson, this comes from Michael Luckman, who knew Michael Jackson in New York City. According to Michael Luckman, who had spoken with Jackson, said in November 2001 that he believed he was once an alien. And this is one of the reasons why he was a great fan of the movie E.T. and Men in Black. Michael identified the planet where he came from, and he was very, very open about this kind of stuff.
Now, again, that is second-hand information and wasn't directly from Michael's mouth. That was from somebody saying Michael said this. So we're going to take that particular one with a grain of salt, but considering the person it was, it's not a stretch to believe that one, right? At least not for me, anyway.
Jimi Hendrix is a big one.
Hendrix had an incredible encounter. Listen to this one.
Jimi Hendrix is actually a book written on him, I think. He told the New York Times reporter he believed he was from Mars. There were other people in the solar system, you know, they have the same feelings too. And he goes on about how he believes that he has this thing. And he actually has there's actually a book, and this was put out by Curtis Knight. And I checked Curtis Knight. He's actually on the albums with Jimi Hendrix. So he's not some guy who just maybe met Hendrix once or twice. He was very close with Jimi Hendrix. He writes this book about Jimi Hendrix's connection with UFOs. And there he is on the album to show that he's actually a real guy, this Curtis Knight. And they tell this story about getting stuck in a snowstorm in New York. And this is Knight telling the story. And this alien comes up. He stood 8 feet tall, his skin was yellowish, and instead of eyes, the creature had slits. His forehead came to a point, and his head ran straight through to his chest, leaving the impression that he had no neck. The being proceeded to float to the ground. They got stuck in a snowstorm, in a snowdrift. They floated to the ground and glided towards the van. The snow was melting in the wake of the creature. His body generated tremendous heat, and the snow disappeared around in all directions. In a matter of what seemed like seconds, the being came to the right-hand side of the van where Jimmy was seated and looked right through the window. Jimmy seemed to be communicating telepathically with it.
Which is something that we classically find across a large amount of abduction cases, is the ability of the alien to telepathically communicate with the human.
And the alien melts all the snow, and they basically get out of the snowstorm and they take off. And Elvis Presley, there's a book, I actually was provided a copy from the person who wrote the book. It's a very rare book. There's actually a book about Elvis Presley, The Blue Light Over the House.
And of course, we know that Hendrix was extremely influential in the music industry, as well as Elvis, of course, to this day is still an extremely influential person in musical artist lives.
A number of times that he and his hairdresser and his manager and his father, all these different sightings that Elvis Presley had, and that the story is that when he was 7 or 8, he was encountered 2 beings who came and they touched him, and when they touched him, he could see himself on stage later in his life with the white suit on and playing, that he had this direct connection with somebody else.
And I gotta say, that is the first time by my recollection that I have heard the Elvis Presley case file. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's a new case file on me, and probably a new case file on you guys, I would guess, right? Did you guys know about the Elvis Presley alien encounter case file? Go ahead and put a 1 in the chat room over there if you knew about that already. Put a 2 if you had never heard of that like me, and put a 3 if you just feel like putting a 3 and want to be indifferent, right?
This one's really weird. Ellie Goulding, she's sort of very popular now. I think I've got her song here.
And the one song that I know Ellie Goulding by, and I know there's a couple that she's done that I like, but the one that really caught my attention was her first one, Anything Could Happen. And if you look at the music video, it's full of these weird metallic orbs on what almost looks like an alien landscape of a beach, right? It's a really, really intriguing video. One that I'll probably play in the backstage tonight to emphasize my point, and it's a really awesome song too. But the influence is very clear in her work, I would say.
Her fear of the dark. Of course, all experiences have this fear of the dark, or a lot of them do. She has this fear of the dark. So basically, it's pretty clear. This is like an experiencer. The other thing she talks about is the fact, and this comes up a lot with musicians, she's obsessed with triangles. She has only one tattoo, and it's on her wrist. Tattoo of a triangle on her wrist.
And in the video that I just mentioned, the Anything Could Happen video, there's some triangles sitting around again on this alien looking landscape beach along with these big round spheres. Very, very intriguing video.
Another one, I pull it on my lecture now because I hate the questions about devil, and it just goes crazy. I mean, Katy Perry. Katy Perry is fascinated. She has all her songs. She sings the E.T. songs. She has the triangles on stage. There's triangles everywhere.
And a lot of people, when they analyze and break down these performances that are done by a lot of these artists, a lot of them point to the triangles and say, look, that's Illuminati symbol, that's evil symbol. However, it may not be the symbol that we think it is. It may be, once again, a hijacked symbol by the elites, the pyramid symbol, the triangle symbol, if you will. Perhaps it is more of an alien message symbol than it is an elite's evil symbol. I don't know, it's just speculation, but it very well is possible. It's not the first time we've seen them do this. The swastika was actually a very old, ancient symbol of love until the Germans got a hold of it back in World War II, and now the symbol is considered a much, much different connotation. But that's not how it started. It got hijacked, and perhaps that's the same thing with the triangle and the pyramid shape. Perhaps it goes back to an alien message, and we have had it hijacked by the elites, and it now looks like an evil message. Just a thought.
But I pulled it out because I always have to face, this is the devil, this is not aliens, and I just can't take it. John Lennon is one.
Now, we all know that John Lennon preached a very love-filled message, right? A very love the earth, love each other filled message, which is basically the alien message, right?
John Lennon is one. Everybody knows he had a sighting in 1974 in August on a penthouse. Here he's actually pointing to the place where the UFO was. And at the time he was with May Pang, He'd broken up with Yoko Ono, later would get back together with Yoko Ono, but at that time he was with May Pang. And he tells the story, the thing's flying along, he's naked on the balcony, she's in the shower, he's yelling at her, get out here, and he's yelling, he doesn't have his glasses on, he's short-sighted. This thing is so close, he said he could hit it with a brick, he could see it very clearly, had these lights all around the thing, and I always say, why do I have UFOs have lights on it? So you can see it. He has all these weird lights, these big bulbs on it, has a red light on the top, and he's yelling at her, she comes out, they're trying to take photos of this thing, they're yelling, they're screaming, the event takes 10 minutes. So the story goes down that he has a UFO sighting. May Pang starts telling the story years later, and you can...
Due to copyright restriction, I'm not going to take the chance of playing that here, but you can go look this up. May Pang talking about her UFO experience with John Lennon.
Google it. You can pull up her interviews where she talks about it, and she starts talking about what's called the Oz effect, where suddenly time and space stops. And she says, the weirdest thing was we were on this deck and we're yelling and screaming, and below us on the deck is a couple, and there was a stairway up, and they always used to come up. They come up all the time, and we were there, we were naked, we're screaming at this thing and yelling and screaming for 10 minutes, and they never came up. She said, it's weird, why didn't they come up? And then she said she looked out over all the apartments outside and nobody was home. They were all vacant. They were just like nobody there. And she said, and then this thing popped into her head, said, oh, it's Friday night, they've all gone to the Hamptons. And she said, oh, okay. And they all gone to the Hamptons. And so he has this Oz effect where time and space basically stops. And you'll hear this with abductees.
That is actually quite true. There is quite a good splattering of cases where it does describe this, quote, Oz effect, where time and space seem to be very warped and in their own version of reality, if you will.
You'll hear, I always tell the story where there's one on the LA freeway, there's one on these very busy roads where the car's being chased by the UFO, and I always stop the person and say, hang on, let me ask you a question. Was there any other cars on the road? And they go, that was the weirdest thing. There was no other cars on the road. And I say, was it a busy road? Oh yeah, busy road. Cars all the time. And was there any cars? No, there was no cars. I wonder what. And it's this Oz effect, this weird thing where time and space stops.
And, you know, given that little bit of information, with the theory, like I said earlier, that Jacques Vallée and many researchers since have put forward that the aliens could very well be interdimensional, that would make a lot of sense if they're able to warp the dimensions and bring you into another dimension where everything is quiet except you, perhaps a temporary dimension, if you will. This is completely hypothetically theoretical, but if they're able to stop traffic and move everybody, perhaps they're not moving everybody, perhaps they're just moving you to a different reality where they can kind of have you to themselves, if you will.
So to me, there's no doubt that John Lennon had been abducted, and there's a rumored story that he had told somebody. It's hard to confirm that kind of stuff, that he knew he was an abductee. If you got experiencers that follow his lines, here's Sean Lennon, his son, and if you can see it on the photo, you may not be able to see it very well, his girlfriend is walking along with a UFO magazine. And this was staged. There's a second one where they take this photo, and again, she's got a UFO magazine, and then he actually does a video. He puts out a song, and he's got flying saucers flying through the thing. So, like father, like son.
And that question was actually posed to me a couple of days ago. Why is it that experiencers seem to have a generational the abductee thing? Like, if your father and grandfather and all that were abducted, you're probably going to be an abductee too. Why does it follow family lines? And that's a whole debate that's still also raging in ufology, so not one I'm going to get back into tonight, but it really does come out in the case files that does tend to be a thing, that it is generational with these experiences.
Here's Mel Frankhauser, and he tells a story. But yeah, I'm going to tell the story of John. Well, I'll tell you the story of John Lennon right now. He has this experience. He has this UFO sighting. He writes this song. And when I interview him, if you Google my name and his name, you'll come up with interviews that he and I did, where I talked to him about, do you ever have anything in dreams? Because there's all this download stuff. Oh, yeah, I got songs in dreams in the middle of the night and stuff like that. And we're talking about this and the yellow pad beside the bed that John Lennon had, and all these people, how they record this stuff.
And many artists of many variety, not just musical artists, are very well known to wake directly up from a dream with sudden inspiration.
He has this UFO sighting. He goes, he makes this song, he goes to California, he goes into this room, and he said it was the only time he ever had stage fright. He walks into the room, he's going to sing this song to a small group of people, and there's John Lennon sitting there. And he went, whoa, he's like, wow. And so he played the song, and John says to him, he says, so what's the inspiration for that song? So he told him the story about the UFO sighting and stuff, and they didn't talk about UFOs, but John said, let me tell you, he says, it's like channeling. I'm telling you, it's like channeling. But as soon as it happens, man, you got to write it down. Write it down as soon as it happens, because if you don't, he says the song will lose its freshness. And he said a lot of the songs we did for the Beatles would have been way better, except that we couldn't get into a studio for 2 months.
Now, that is a very interesting thing. Another thing about it is a lot of movie directors and producers and writers will tell you, especially writers, will tell you that if you get an idea and you don't jump on it and write it down and go for it right then, somebody else in the world has also got the exact same idea at the exact same time, and it's working on the exact same movie. And this has happened a lot more than you would think. If you look at Hollywood, you can see it happen quite often, where these movies come out at the same time would have almost the exact same movie line, and you wonder, why did one rip the other off, or how did they get away with it? Why did they have the same type of movie come out at the same time? And it turns out neither director knew about it, the other director doing that movie, and until both come out at the same time, both are both surprised, that the other one has been working on a movie of the same type. So interesting information there, and it works across a variety of artistic genres. We're just focusing on music this evening.
So Fankhauser tells a story about how these musicians talk about where's this inspiration coming from, where's this sort of stuff, and Fankhauser doesn't say it's coming from aliens. He says he doesn't know where it's coming from, but he says he's got the tape recorder by his bed, he's got the yellow legal pad that I'll talk about Carlos Santana has, he's got the studio down the hall, and when it happens, he gets up and he writes it down. He says that lots of songs have come to him at inspirational moments.
Of all of the ones that I've heard tonight, Carlos Santana is one of them that I would honestly believe being an alien. Not only can the man make a guitar do things that I've very rarely seen any other artist make a guitar do, just the same, the man was old when our parents were kids, and he's still old to this day, and he doesn't look like he's aged today my entire life. So I would actually put money on Carlos Santana being an alien. That's one of the very few that I would hands down not even have a doubt about, right? How about you guys?
This guy was, I think it's, industrial rock.
So this next person is a pioneer of yet another musical genre.
He's the guy invented industrial rock, and he talks about, if you're into UFOs and extraterrestrials, you know the Greys. They're those little effers from another planet who come down every once in a while to check us out. They've been keeping an eye on me since an early age. I didn't get the name Alien Jorgensen for nothing. And here again, even in a car wreck with an albino deer, all at once, started saying, yeah, I remember that. So he has, instead of hitting a pheasant, he hits a deer, and suddenly he starts thinking about this alien abduction stuff. And he goes on quite a bit. And he talks about how they took the baby from his wife, and he goes through the whole thing. So you have this connection.
Now, this right here sounds like a very hardcore experiencer, both him and his wife. And I would argue that his wife was probably an abductee who was part of the hybrid experiments that we've heard about amongst the case files in the last 10 or 15 years.
David Bowie was one of the big ones. David Bowie will not talk about it anymore, but Michael Luckman knew his wife very well and got a lot of the stories. David Bowie said, I've always felt like a vehicle for someone else, but I've never really sorted out what it was. There's a feeling that we are here for another purpose. The album, he became famous for this Ziggy Stardust in the early 1970s, the alter ego Ziggy Stardust, a rock star who acts as a messenger for extraterrestrial beings. Again, you got to remember, this is the early 1970s. It's not big like it is now. Nobody was talking about aliens coming with messages. This is big time now. It wasn't then.
And of course, like we've said before, the alien abductees definitely have a very clear and definitive message that they bring.
And here's another one with this connection to movies. He plays Thomas Newton, a humanoid alien from the movie Man Who Fell to Earth. So it's this basic story of an alien that comes here to give a message to the world. In 1983, he plays the vampire in the movie The Hunger, which was written by Whitley Strieber. And at 1983, Whitley Strieber didn't even know he was an abductee yet. So then you have David Bowie in Whitley Strieber's movie.
And of course, Whitley Strieber, a fellow paranormal radio talk show host and experiencer himself, that has had a lot of research as well as personal experience with the ufology field and the alien abduction phenomenon, himself having been abducted a numerous amount of times also. But yeah, David Bowie and Whitley Strieber working together, now that is a heck of a team, and you've both got experiencers there who are sharing this alien message and producing content. So, I mean, it just really is interesting that you've got all these experiencers on the inside of the entertainment industry.
David Bowie believed he was one of the light people ETs from another planet or dimension that included Dylan, Galileo, and Jimi Hendrix. As a 12-year-old, he believed aliens were visiting him at night to study his habits. He contributed to a UFO magazine in London in 1969. He made 6 or 7 sightings a night for a year, and he had, and then name up a bunch of witnesses. He used to apparently had his, when he was in the States, he'd have a limo with the sunroom, and he'd a sunroof, and he'd have the telescope sticking out the sunroom, and he was watching the stars.
So yet another one that really doesn't surprise me, David Bowie. What a quirky entertainer he was, and it really explains that quirkiness. And ladies and gentlemen, that's all we've got time for tonight, unfortunately. So we're definitely going to have to do a part 2. I didn't expect this, but there's so much more information to cover on this topic. We have barely even scratched the surface. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up next Wednesday, March the, I don't know, I can't even do math that well, right? March the 24th, ladies and gentlemen, with part 2 of Musicians and UFOs. And that is going to be it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think? Do you think that there is a large connection between UFO experiencers and abductees? Do you think they have infiltrated most of Hollywood and perhaps they're trying to get the alien message out to the rest of the world in a undercover and secretive way? We know they definitely put this message out quite a bit that aliens are coming, but perhaps there's another group that are putting out the message that the aliens want about loving each other, loving the earth, and being caretakers of the earth itself. And we can get into so much more on Wednesday, the 24th of March, 2021, when we pick back up for the rest of this discussion. All right, ladies and gentlemen, in the end, all you can do is listen to the evidence presented, apply a little common sense, and in the end, you be the judge. We got to close it out. That's right. That's it for this episode of the Dark Wolf's Den Show for Thursday, March 18th, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. The den may be closing for the weekend, ladies and gentlemen, but don't you worry, the weekend fun has only just begun. Make sure you come on back to the Ripon Rabbit Hole and the RiponRabbitHole.com on Friday, March 19th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, for AJ the Ripon Rabbit, the other animal of radio here on Ripon Common Sense Radio, and the Ripon Rabbit Hole live show. That's right. On Friday, he'll be discussing doppelgangers. At least one of him will. Him or his doppelganger. One of the two, right? Have you ever met your doppelganger? Do you think doppelgangers exist? Do you think there's somebody who shares your exact same physical characteristics and traits and would be able to pass off as you or yourself? That is kind of a scary thought, right? I've had many people ask me if I have been to a couple states which I've never even set foot in and told me they had seen me there. So apparently I have some doppelgangers around myself. Check that episode out on Friday if you're interested in that topic on AJ the Ripon Rabbit's Ripon Rabbit Hole Live Show, Friday, March 19th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then on Saturday, March 20th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Come on back for the most special broadcast that we can do every year. It is the Freedom Flame broadcast. The Freedom Flame burns bright in Ripon, Wisconsin for every American and for the belief and the love of the freedom that we all share. This is a very, very, very special broadcast for us. This is your Bring a Friend night. So make sure that when you receive the email next Wednesday, that you bring a friend and send that email out and get everybody you can to come join us for this very special episode. It is a Freedom Flame broadcast, but it is not politically based. It does not matter if you are a Democrat or a Republican, a black, white, yellow, red, male, female. There's no lines drawn here. Everybody is welcome to celebrate the Freedom Flame March 20th, 2021 on Ripon Common Sense Radio, right here on the Ripon Rabbit Hole Live Show with AJ the Ripon Rabbit. That is a very incredibly special episode that we do every year here. This is our 4th annual Freedom Flame broadcast, and I could not be more proud to be a part of this network. I unfortunately won't be able to join the broadcast that evening, but I guarantee you I will be there in spirit because I am very, very passionate about freedom. Then on Sunday, ladies and gentlemen, March 21st, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, AJ will be back one more time to round out the weekend right with the show on magnetic personality, right? Do you have a magnetic personality? Do you attract people to you naturally and make friends easily, or do you have a little issue with these things? Well, make sure you check out AJ the Ripon Rabbit on Sunday, March 21st, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, right here on Ripon Common Sense Radio, as he discusses that very topic and rounds out the weekend right here on Ripon Common Sense Radio and RiponRabbitHole.com. And speaking of RiponRabbitHole.com, if you haven't been over there already, you are missing out. Make sure you over there and sign up for your Backstage Pass. That's right. You can get backstage with us, host, and hang out with us personally if you would like. That's right. Sign up for the Backstage Pass. You're also going to be signing up for our email once a week on Wednesday. The only email we send out, it does not get spammed, it does not get sold, it does not get given away. Your information is locked away only for the ability for us to send you an email with all the information of all the shows of the rabbit holes and the wolf's dens that we're covering every single week. And also, when you've got your Backstage Pass, make sure you drop by the VIP 24/7 Lounge. That's right, that's where I'm going to be hanging out right after the show. I would love to see every last one of you guys over there. It's always a blast, a wonderful conversation with an international audience, and just absolutely fun. I just can't get over how much I enjoy hanging back there with the rabbits every single night. So make sure you come on over and join us. We would love to have you guys over there. Also, while you're over there, drop down the rabbit hole. That is our social media alternative. Come on over and check that out if you're tired of the big boys and their lying censorship. So that is one of my favorite hangouts. If you haven't, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you bookmark the RiponRabbitHole.com, because it will quickly become one of your favorite hangouts to hop around and enjoy all the information that we keep over there constantly. We've got news updated 24/7, all kind of information. It's something you do not want to miss. Make sure you bookmark it. Make sure you go visit it, and we would really appreciate the support, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Ripon Common Sense Radio, AJ the Ripon Rabbit, Chick Mandela Effect, Michael Musco, Walt House, and everybody involved on the team, as well as our mod team over there in the YouTube chat. Everybody that's helped make this show possible, we appreciate every last one of you guys. Quick shout out to Ripon, Wisconsin, and all 49 countries across the world where we are coming in loud and clear across the airways. We really appreciate every last one of you guys being along for the ride. On behalf of all these folks, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and it is my honor and pleasure to serve you every week with such great information. Remember, until next week, ladies and gentlemen, stay awake, but dare to dream. Good night, everybody. How? Yeah!
Unlocked and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner, is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner, is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonder